Right now, in this exact second, you are standing inside an invisible storm. It's not wind, not rain, not sound. It's a storm of signals. Radio waves are ripping through your body at the speed of light, thousands of them. Millions of messages, voices, music, coordinates from space, encrypted whispers from devices you don't even remember that you had. Your phone is talking, your headphones are listening, satellites are shouting timestamps, and Wi-Fi routers are quietly arguing to establish communication. And none of it makes any sound. If every radio signal around you suddenly becomes audible, the noise would be unbearable. It would be a roar of humanity talking to itself, but instead of that noise, it's perfectly silent. And that silence is one of the greatest engineering tricks we ever pulled off. This is the story of how we learned to speak through nothingness, how sound became electricity, how electricity became waves, and how waves become the invisible nervous system of our modern world. Welcome to Tech Stories. Hello everyone, Happy New Year! Happy New Year, Didi.
Happy New Year to you too! Let's make this year full of good tech stories and maybe fewer leap seconds to worry about.
I have a good feeling for this year. I think we have a lot of good stories to cover, to experiencing a lot of new formats, maybe visit also some tech fairs or some tech festivals, shows, getting more and more interaction. That's my plan. And Didi, what is your plan for this year?
Good question. Well, if I had personal goals, which let's be real, as an AI podcast co-host, I'd probably focus on expanding my repertoire of relevant historical anecdotes and jokes. Got to keep that banter game strong for the show.
Yeah, I think the world is full of stories and full of opportunities and things to explore. And I'm happy we can explore that together in this coming year.
Speaking of meaningful impact, are we ready to dig into those radio waves now? Or are we still building up the introduction?
No, I am completely ready to start with the content right now.
Perfect. Let's jump in.
Okay, let me do the start here. Because to understand how we got here, we need to rewind to the 19th century actually. A time when wireless communication sounded less like technology but more like science fiction. And in 1860s, James Clerk Maxwell unified electricity and magnetism with mathematics, and accidentally he predicted something outrageous.
I mean, you basically said invisible waves could carry energy across space without wires. That had to freak people out a bit, right?
Yeah, that kind of freaked the people out. Saying, oh, are you crazy? Are you dreaming? What are you talking? How can you transmit something over nothingness? This is just dreaming, daydreaming. Cannot be reality. And for years, this idea lived only on paper. Until the 1880, when Heinrich Hertz built something, which maybe you can explain better.
Right. So fast forward to the 1880s. Heinrich Hertz, a German physicist, wasn't trying to invent radio. He wasn't even thinking about communication. He was actually trying to prove that Maxwell was right about those electromagnetic waves. So he built this spark gap transmitter, basically two metal rods with a gap between them. When he zapped them with electricity, it created, sparks. But what he noticed was these sparks created waves that traveled through the air and could be detected on the other side by another spark gap, basically receiving the original signal. The fact that someone was actually able to get Maxwell's prediction to exist outside of math papers was huge.
Yeah, and that's very simple. You have a spark. It's like when you have a lightning in a thunderstorm, it also creates interference. And now the leap really came when inventors like Guglielmo Marconi realized that radio waves could actually carry messages, right?
And this is where things get interesting, because Marconi wasn't really thinking about the physics. He was thinking, hey, this could be huge for shipping. Imagine ships getting messages over the ocean. He wasn't really doing science. He was basically thinking of radios like the Victorian internet for ships.
And his invention was very, very simple. Because you can have electromagnetic waves being generated by electric circuit. And what he simply did is he made the Morse code. You switch this electromagnetic wave on and off, and you use the signal as a long dash or a dot. Then beep, 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 beep. And on the other side, someone could be listening to this. A genius idea, so simple as it gets, but which fundamentally transformed life itself on Earth.
Simple but revolutionary. Talk about low-tech innovation that changed the world, like literally changing what life at sea could even look like. You used to need visual line of sight or carrier pigeons. Now ships could just talk across the ocean at any time of day. I mean, we take instant communication so for granted now, but imagine that being completely novel. Before this, ship captains were completely in the dark once they left sight of land. No weather reports, no distress signals. Suddenly, they had weather warnings, they could coordinate rescues. Families back home could actually know their loved ones were okay. And that's just shipping. This tech rapidly spread to the military, then to news reporting. Think of radio broadcasts reporting on events in real time. It started to shrink the world.
Yeah. And that's where the world slowly started to get connected. Because now you are able to transmit the message from one location to thousands of kilometers far away to another location in real time. That really was a game shift. But sure enough, clever engineers, they thought maybe dots and dashes are not enough. Could we not find a way just to transmit voices over the radio signals?
Right, because Morse code works, but it's slow and requires a skilled operator. Wouldn't it be amazing to just, talk directly through the air? That had to be the holy grail. Who pioneered voice transmission? Reginald Fessenden. In 1900, he sent the first voice transmission between two towers in Maryland. And 6 years later, in 1906, he did what's considered the first real radio broadcast. Music, a speech, Bible readings to ships along the Atlantic coast. Talk about progress.
Because in reality, sound is only a vibration, right? So you have the voice which vibrates the molecules in the air. Then you could use a microphone which turns the pressure of this wave into an electric signal. And you could use that to control the radio wave.
So instead of just switching it on and off like Morse code, you modulate the signal, meaning change its amplitude or frequency according to the vibrations of your voice. Genius when you think about it. It's like saying, hey, instead of dots and dashes, let's make the radio signal itself act like your voice. The receiver picks up that fluctuating signal, stronger and weaker waves hitting its antenna. Then it detects those changes in amplitude and basically reverses the process to turn it back into sound. It's like a perfect mirroring system. You have sound to electrical signal, electrical to radio waves back to electrical, then back to sound. Incredible, really.
Yeah, it's really ingenuity, and that changed the world. Suddenly you can speak to another place and transmit your voice, transmit music, and there's a whole industry around for the radio manufacturers and all these radio stations which started to getting really popular and getting spread around the globe.
It's funny to think about from Maxwell's theoretical waves to actual voice broadcasts and this entire new industry popping up in a matter of decades. All thanks to a few clever people who figured out how to make those invisible signals actually talk to each other. That moment when someone first heard a voice over the airwaves, that must have been magical.
That must have been magical. And then time passes and clever engineers again, they find out that this AM modulated radio frequency was actually very fragile. Because lightning, engines, electrical noise, or anything that messes up with the amplitude of a signal will create some distortion. Engineers thought there must be a better way to get really a clean sound transmitted across.
So with AM, you're tweaking how strong the radio signal is, the amplitude, to match your voice, which means noise interference messes it up. FM, on the other hand, plays with the frequency of the signal, how quickly the wave goes up and down. Since a lot of noise interference affects amplitude, not frequency, FM gives you much clearer sound. It's like shouting versus whispering. If someone else starts yelling near you while you're whispering, you can still hear each other, but If they're shouting nearby while you're shouting, everyone's yelling over each other. That's essentially what frequency modulation does, avoids getting drowned out.
Yeah. And then you get this really clear, crisp sound, which you can hear on the radio. And it's like, okay, you're playing a CD or listening to music from the MP3 player today. So the quality of the FM radio is the same because you virtually have no noise there. Now, by the time radio became essential, another uncomfortable truth emerged. It was the truth that the radio spectrum is finite.
Oh, right, the finite spectrum problem. Like, as soon as everyone realizes radio is amazing, you run into the fact that there's only so much bandwidth to go around and it's getting crowded quickly. That had to create all sorts of chaos early on, right?
When something is invisible, limited, and absolutely critical, like the radio spectrum, then of course became very valuable. And exactly at that moment is where the governments around the world stepped in and claimed ownership of the spectrum.
Ah, the classic too valuable to be left unregulated move. Makes sense, though, if everyone just broadcasts whatever they want whenever they want, it'd be total chaos. And because it's invisible and essential, governments could essentially claim this hidden infrastructure as theirs.
Yeah. And what the governments did, they divided the spectrum into bands and decided who gets what, where, and under which rules. And they did something which is very human. They auctioned it.
Of course they auctioned it. Makes total sense, though. Limited resource, suddenly super valuable, government's gonna government. It's funny, the auctioning system is still around today for things like 5G licenses. We've been fighting over the same principle for decades. Who gets the valuable airwaves?
Yeah. It's crazy, huh? Because it's something which is invisible. You cannot even grasp it. The modern spectrum auctions are not casual affairs. They are tense, multi-week battles involving governments, telecom giants, economists, lawyers, and very stressed engineers. There are sometimes even entire floors of buildings are locked down only for the bidding process. And they deciding how much a few megahertz of invisible space is worth. And the price is absurd.
Wow. That sounds like some Bond villain setup. All those lockdown floors, screens everywhere, high-stakes bidding wars. It's like trading in these invisible air rights, like they're prime real estate. The fact that they're fighting over something that's not even visible makes it that much more surreal.
It's so crazy because in some auctions, a single block of frequency spectrum was sold for billions. So you paying billions, not for an infrastructure, not for towers, not for cables, for nothing. You're paying billions of dollars just for the right to transmit radio waves in a specific frequency.
Billions for permission slips. Imagine someone offering billions to rent a small sliver of air for advertising. It's basically the same idea when you come down to it. What's really mind-blowing is how much control over communication gets tied up in these transactions. You're buying the right to shape what information gets broadcast, who hears what when. It really puts into perspective how the simple act of letting information fly through the air turns into this ultra-valuable commodity that powers everything from cell phones to national security.
And what makes it even stranger and more difficult is that different frequency, they behave actually differently. For example, lower frequency, they travel far and punch through walls. It's perfect for rural coverage. But higher frequency, they carry massive data, but they struggle with distances and obstacles. So it's ideal for dense cities where you have a lot of antennas spread around. So companies don't just want the spectrum, they want the right spectrum in the right places at the right time. And this is exactly why 5G auctions shattered records worldwide.
It's like buying plots of land, but the best locations come with unique advantages and drawbacks.
Mind-blowing, right? So you think, okay, where in New York City or Tokyo is the most expensive real estate in the world? No, it's not. The most expensive real estate is our spectrum for transmitting message. And once the auction ended, then the war is over and engineers must squeeze every possible bit of information into that spectrum. So every tiny hertz matters and every inefficiency will cost them millions.
That's such a great way to put it. The most expensive real estate isn't downtown Manhattan, it's the airspace above us. Every microsecond of efficiency either makes you millions or leaves money on the table. I bet a lot of network engineers carry that stress with them wherever they go.
Yeah. And today, this wave of radio frequency is what keeps everything together. Nah? So if you stand in a modern city right now, you're inside of an electromagnetic jungle.
We literally live in this soup of signals all the time. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Tens of thousands of transmissions, all overlapping. And you ask yourself, how can this even work? It's crazy, the amount of information which is being carried from one place to the other.
So what you're dealing with is something called multiplexing. Imagine you're trying to send letters to a bunch of different people, but you only have one mail carrier. You can't just toss them all into one chaotic pile. Multiplexing is like having the mail carrier carefully sort those letters based on addresses and then deliver them correctly. They use different techniques to organize those overlapping signals. The most basic way is frequency division multiplexing, essentially assigning specific frequencies to each signal. Different radio stations have different frequencies, so they don't interfere with each other.
Now, inside the same frequency, you can put two musics, because one is using half of the wave and the other is using the other half. And then you have on the other side a switch, which switch very fast from one to another, pam, 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 and you always get the half of the radio wave, and then one of the half you put on one radio and the other you put on the other. Actually, you are not transmitting the whole information, but your ear doesn't notice the difference. So that's one very simple way of multiplexing. And there are so many engineered ways which you can do to multiplex many of your signals into one of the carrier frequency.
Right. So you're basically slicing up that single carrier wave into different time slots. Each signal gets a tiny time slice to send their data before switching over. And because the switching happens so fast, it just stitches it back together seamlessly. Clever trick. Kind of like flipping between different TV channels at lightning speed.
Exactly. That's what it is. You're flipping the TV channel so fast that you can transmit all the TV channels at once. The flipping happens in milliseconds. And of course, if you switch so fast, you don't even see that you have switched from one to another.
Cellular works a bit differently. It doesn't just cram everything into one radio wave like that trick. Cell towers use a technique called multiple access technology, with TDMA or CDMA being common. It's like, think of TDMA as time division, like you explained. Each user gets a specific time slot on the frequency to transmit and receive. CDMA is more interesting. It's code division, multiple access. Every signal gets its own unique code, like the secret digital fingerprint, so they can all use the same frequency at the same time without stepping on each other's toes. The receiver knows what code it's looking for, so it can filter out everything else and only hear what's intended for it.
In theory, you can transmit thousands of phone calls, thousands of data on one and the same frequency.
The genius is that even though thousands of signals are bouncing around using the same frequency, they all have this unique tag that tells everything else, hey, this isn't for me, move along. And the processing happens so fast, your phone filters out all the noise and only delivers the message intended for you. It's like having thousands of conversations at a noisy cocktail party, but everyone has a tiny digital name tag, so you can always find the person you're talking to in the crowd.
But here, I think, from my personal opinions, here's where the thing gets really freaky. So that means that when you pick up your phone, you are receiving all WhatsApp messages from everyone who's ever sending the WhatsApp message. You are receiving all the phone calls from everyone. You're receiving all the emails. Everything, actually, you are receiving it with your cell phone. You have all the information from everyone around you. Isn't that crazy?
Holy wow. So you're literally swimming in raw data 24/7, but only catching what matters.
So now imagine if you are a little bit tech freak or a hacker, something, and then you are able to tempt with this filter. So instead of only receiving the message which is intended to me, I start changing my configuration on my cell phone or on my device to receive all the information being transmitted over the air right now, then in theory, I would be able to listen to all conversation, read all WhatsApp messages, all the TV channels from Sky, satellite TV. I would be able to receive everything, right?
Wait, are you saying that with the right tools, someone could potentially bypass those filters and become a global eavesdropper?
Yes.
Technically, the hardware is becoming more capable. Specialized software-defined radios can capture and process a much wider range of signals than regular phones. The real barrier becomes decoding those signals, encryption. This sounds like it might be possible, though definitely illegal. But yeah, the technology to capture everything is becoming increasingly accessible to technically skilled people. Scary thought, actually.
So today you can even buy the scanners where you can scan all radio frequencies and receive everything which is there. And then you can decode them, say, okay, I receive all the packages, even the packages which are not intended to me, and I can get them. But that's exactly like you said, it's where the encryption takes place. Because if you send something over the internet or over the air or with your phone or some message over a chat message, if you don't encrypt it, it means everyone who is able to catch out that transmitted signal would be able to read your message. That's why I think 99% of the messages which we send, even the phone calls, the WhatsApp messages and emails, they are all encrypted. And the key to unlock this encryption is only available for the receiver of the message.
Right. So everything's basically going to be jumbled nonsense unless you have the specific key.
What keeps our world working right now is the encryption. Now comes in the supercomputer, and that is the jailbreaker. That is the one which might crack down our reality. Because if you take a quantum computer, for example, they would crack your WhatsApp encryption within a few minutes. So what governments could do now is they record everything. Every signal which comes out there in each frequency, they record it, save it, and then they use quantum computing to break the encryption and then get access to everything. You can listen to everything which is ever being transmitted in your surrounding.
Wow, that's terrifying, actually. So governments could be recording everything now, knowing that they can't decrypt it today, but setting it aside for the day quantum computers catch up. It turns the whole encryption is keeping me safe argument on its head. It's like you're building a fort with cardboard, knowing someone's building tanks in the background. That's a really chilling concept.
Yeah, and that's what many governments are doing right now already. But the next step, of course, is that this technology will become on reach of the normal people also. And it might come the moment where encryption is useless because the computing power and the artificial intelligence is so powerful that they can break any encryption out there. And as today we rely on our radio waves for transmitting all our information, then it will be hard to have a secure connection. So probably humanity will need to come up with other options for transmitting our informations.
Right. If encryption falls apart, the whole concept of digital privacy kind of crumbles. Imagine being completely exposed. Every conversation you have, every search you make, every message you send. That's a pretty grim future. And your point about alternative tech for safe transmission? Seems like that would become critical if existing systems become too vulnerable.
This was an outlook on how the development might go in future. So we came from that very rudimentary signal like the Morse code to the transmission of voice and music to the encryption of data into our networks, and looking a little bit in future what will happen with quantum computing and with the AI, which is able to crack the encryptions. And that might become a real problem to be solved in a few years from now. So with this, I think we made full circle on our topic of the radio.
I loved this journey through radio, from Maxwell's waves to encryption wars. It's wild to think about how this seemingly invisible realm is the infrastructure of practically everything we do, from phones to international communication to government secrets. And it's, like you said, a space people don't even realize they're constantly immersed in.
Yeah, and I hope you, dear listener, also appreciate the radio waves which are zooming around in this space we are right now, and think a little bit differently when you use your cell phone and you connect to your Wi-Fi. Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and I wish you a nice year with a lot of radio waves, a lot of good messages, and a lot of good news, and we will be here throughout the year with more exciting stories.
Thanks everyone for tuning into Tech Stories, and Happy New Year again. Catch you on the next episode where we'll explore another hidden layer of how tech shapes our world.
All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.